Welcome, everybody, to the Huddle, KGUN9 streaming sports program. It comes to you each week, Tuesday afternoon. I'm KGUN9 sports director Jason Barr. My tie keyed out, but Pat, our news anchor, is about to do the 4 o'clock news, so he's looking sharp. Pat, how are you today?
I'm good, but I always look a little green in this. For whatever reason, this green screen room, you're green, but your green screen room across the hall, you don't look green. I don't know why.
My lighting's okay today. My
Yeah.
lighting's all right. All right, so a lot going on. Certainly, it's exciting. Kind of 10 days in the world of sports from the Final Four opening day up to the Masters, and we'll start, Pat, with the Final Four and a very different Final Four this
I'll
year.
say.
Some
Yeah.
new blood. I think it's exciting to have some new blood. We got 4 teams in, 3 you don't normally see, with San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, and the team UConn's playing, Miami.
Miami. Yeah.
Miami,
Who
right.
might
All
win
make,
it all. Who might
all
win
make
it all.
their first appearance. Let's go back. Let's take that called Miami first off, as we take a look at Nigel Park, star player for Miami, and a couple of reasons, Pat, for why we have new teams, right? A lot of parity in college basketball, but also certainly NIL. And this player, a big reason why, he signed a 2-year deal, nearly $1 million with a business locally in Miami, transfer to Kansas State, from Kansas State to Miami, and a big part of why the Hurricanes are in there. Not the ACC power you normally see like North Carolina or Duke.
No, and in some ways, Jason, I think this is great, right? It's not Duke, it's not North Carolina, it's not Kansas. Heck, it's not even Gonzaga or Arizona or UCLA. It's it's refreshing to see. It's great to see UConn back because we remember how great they were for decades, and now all of a sudden they're back in there. Miami, a team that's been up and coming, and the other bracket, Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. Who'd have thunk those? But the common theme there, Jason, you mentioned NIL, but I think more importantly, it's a transfer portal. Now, you could say the reason why some of these players went to these schools was because of NIL deals, and that's why they went there, and that's why they transferred. Transfer portals changed a lot of things. San Diego State, Matt Bradley, remember him? That he's been huge for them. He's one of the reasons why they're all of a sudden on the national scene. You've got Miami. We'll talk more about who's there and NIL here in a minute, but I think that it is a college basketball that has changed dramatically since the portal opened for business in 2018, and it's going to change the way we look at this tournament. We're not going to be able to say, oh, it's chalk, 1s and 2s always make it, the upsets only happen early on. The upsets happened every round seemingly, Jason, and it certainly sparked a lot more interest, I think, around the college basketball world.
Yeah, I think it's great to see some new teams in there, to some teams that we haven't seen in there before. I think, yes, transfer portal for sure. That and NIL kind of go together a little bit. Also with the parity. Let's take a look at the odds of the games and see who's favored by how many. San Diego State got a team maybe rumored to go to the Pac-12. All of a sudden now they look a lot more attractive if you're a Pac-12 fan or you've got a team in the Pac-12. Here they are in the Final Four. Their football team's got a new stadium. They host Florida Atlantic. A lot of people may not know where that is. It's in Boca Raton, Florida. They're 2.5-point favorite. And then UConn really the favorite to win the tournament here as we go into the Final Four, a 5.5-point favorite over Miami.
Yeah, I actually like Miami a little bit more than the odds makers, but I think you told me your mom likes UConn because of the 3-point prowess of the Huskies. Is that right?
Not only that, just how hot they've been. How they passed the eye test.
Yeah. They certainly do. Miami, though, seems to be one of those teams. And I think, at least I look at it this way. I think that the winner of the Miami UConn game probably wins the national championship. It's no guarantee, obviously, but it does seem to be that those two teams have a little bit more pedigree. They have a little more depth. Maybe they would be able to handle San Diego State or Florida Atlantic. We'll have to see. But I do like Miami too. I don't think it's just a pushover. I think Miami's a hot team too. We'll just have to wait and see and have them play the game.
Yeah, Pat, throwing that comment in there because my mom was texting me all weekend long about the games, kind of hoping she calls in here to the Huddle, but I don't know. I think she's out busy with one of her grandkids right now. So I don't know that's going to happen. That's going to happen this week. But yeah, a very exciting Final Four. I think though that, Pat, that's an example. People I think were energized and excited by the new teams, by how close the games were, by all the upsets. And I think it was, I really enjoyed the last 2 weekends of college basketball. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I
Obviously, you
did.
want your team in there.
Yeah, I
You know,
would
an
have.
Arizona fan's not happy that their team's in there, but them losing to
Yeah.
Princeton by seeing another a number one team losing, by seeing all the upsets, it kind of took the sting maybe away just a little bit.
Oh, no, there's no doubt that when you see a number one lose in Purdue, that took a little sting the next day off of Arizona's loss. Then you see Princeton move on again, and you think, okay, Princeton was a team that was probably a little bit better than we thought they were, even than we thought they were going to be. But in the end, they just didn't have enough offensive firepower. Princeton didn't. So you're frustrated as an Arizona fan that you think, okay, you could have made it to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, then the Elite Eight, and then look, Alabama lost as well. Maybe you'd be a Final Four team, but you know what? You didn't deserve it, so you chalk that up to a crazy NCAA tournament, and you hope that next year you have a little bit better results, better success.
Yeah, speaking of Arizona, not a surprise here that Adama Ball transfers out. But Kirk Creesa, a little bit of a surprise, and maybe a little bit of a surprise, some of the fan reaction on social media. I don't think this is going to be a huge loss for Arizona, other than the fact they just don't have a lot of numbers right now. You could look at the good and say, hey, he led the Pac-12 in assists. Hey, he was the point guard on a team that scored a lot of points. But Pat, here's also a guy, just a lot of drama on the court, technical fouls, getting into a coach's face, inconsistent shooting, a lot of late season injuries. A lot of people don't like the way he came across. You could use a lot of people using the 4-letter word that starts with J and ends with K. I don't think this is going to be a huge loss for Arizona, but they've got to get some players in, and not just mediocre players. Because if Arizona loses Tubelis, it's going to be a big loss. So on one hand, I'm okay with Creesa going to the transfer portal, but we got to see some players coming in either by recruiting or the transfer portal. And I mean players that can have more of an impact than a Cedric Henderson or a Courtney Ramey did this year. Guys who are going to have a bigger impact than that on the court.
Well, if you queued up the tape, you would have heard me say last week it wouldn't surprise me if Kirk Creesa entered the transfer portal. I did say that. I think that it's not going to be as big a loss as perhaps you might, see. You say, okay, you got a top 10 team. They're going to lose their point guard who led a major conference in assists. Boy, that's a big loss. I don't think it's as big a loss. And I will say this, Jason. The transfer portal has some very good names popping up on there, and some of them are point guards. And I understand that Arizona feels like they're in really good shape right now at point guard, with Kylan Boswell as a freshman, now becoming a sophomore. But it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't use that transfer portal to pick up another point guard, and it wouldn't surprise me if they picked up another big man too, because I think we all expect them to lose Azuolas Tubelis. It's a really great transfer portal right now, and there are several big names that are associated with University of Arizona right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even just with the number situation, they only have one player coming in for next year. This wasn't a deep team to begin with. I think you're going to see several players added, in the next week or so. And by the way, if you're an Arizona women's basketball fan and you're watching this live right now, which is Tucson time, 3:00, in about a half hour on ESPN2, is the McDonald's All-American Women's Game. And you can see two players coming in, Brea and Jada Williams, the point guard, and Brea Cunningham. She's more of a forward. And just two of the three terrific players are going to be playing for Arizona women's basketball next year, along with Montea Dew, who gray-shirted. She would be in the McDonald's All-American Game, but she graduated high school and left early and gray-shirted. So that'd be fun to see coming up here in a little bit with the McDonald's game for the women.
Yeah, and that just shows you, what the future looks like for Adia Barnes. Now, it's been a couple of lean years after going to the championship game and losing by one shot at the end. But I think this team, certainly she's got a plan, and this team will be a better team next year, and maybe 2 years from now we're talking Final Four again. We'll see.
All right, I want to bring up another topic here, Pat, that kind of came across this past week. Lute Olson's championship ring. So this is the 1997 championship ring. It's going up for auction at a legitimate place in Scottsdale, the Phoenix area, next month. And I got the email. We may do a story here on KGUN 9. A lot of mixed feelings here. I mean, my first reaction, Pat, a little sad. I feel like it kind of belongs in the family, but I'm told, hey, the money goes to things like college education and other things. So there's different ways to look at it. But before we get into all the different angles that we can go into the story, my first reaction was I was a little bit sad to see, but maybe I had the wrong reaction, or maybe there's no wrong reaction for somebody to have. What's your first reaction when you hear something like that?
I was surprised, Jason. I really was, because I'm like you. If I'd like to keep, if that were my family and that were, say, my father or grandfather, I'd like to keep that ring in the family, or at least maybe see it. Maybe you donate it and have it shown by the University of Arizona. But to have it sold, now we don't know all the circumstances, and we don't pretend to know exactly why the family decided to part with it and thought that they could. But I was surprised, and I'm like you. I'm a little bit saddened by that fact, because I really think you'd like to see that stay in the Olson family.
So I'm sad and you're surprised. I'll tell you what did surprise me, Pat, was the amount that it's going to go for, which is a lot less than I thought. So the winning bid, the initial bid is only $10,000, and some experts were telling me they think it's only going to go between $40,000 and $60,000. I was shocked, and I'll tell you why. In the year 2023, 50 grand, it's not that much money, especially to somebody who has a lot of money, a former player or an alum. And I would be surprised if a former player bought it. So what I did, Pat, was okay. Let me get you on that before I go to my
Yeah.
next thought.
No,
Your thought on how much
I
would
agree.
you have guessed? I would have guessed between $100,000 and $200,000. What would you have
Right,
guessed?
because we know that other things are going at auction at the same time, other memorabilia like Wayne Gretzky memorabilia and things like that. And you think, okay, we understand that might be a little more valuable to some sports collectors. But yeah, 100 grand probably sounds about right. If somebody said they were going to pay 200 grand, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think it's a pretty big steal at $50,000. And who knows, maybe a guy like a Steve Kerr or somebody like that would want to buy it. Maybe there's some big mega donor at the University of Arizona that thinks that does need to be in the Hall of Champions or something. You and I talked about that before we went on. I really, I'd hate to say see it just go into some private collector's hands and not be shown. It really would look very nice next to the national championship trophy.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what happens to it after that if it goes into a private collector's hands. Steve Kerr and others have donated $1 million to the university.
Yeah,
50
Richard
grand.
Jefferson. I mean,
Yeah, 50 grand to Steve Kerr's is not a lot of money.
yeah,
And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody bought it and just donated it back to U of A or kept it for themselves. You kind of want to see that in the Hall of Champions, like I said. So I actually contacted the University of Arizona and let them know. They weren't aware, that that's somebody else who could bid in. Just really surprised that it was only going to go between 40 and assuming the ring's in decent shape, between 40 and 60,000. When I think of the ring, Pat, I think of the introduction at games at McHale Center during the decade from 2010 to 2020, when they did the 16 so and so, the introduction on the Jumbotron,
yes,
however many
yeah,
Sweet 16s or this
yep.
many Elite Eights, this many Final Fours, and then
And
Lute says one
one
national championship, and the ring is coming
ring
up.
was
That's
right
what
there.
that's what
Yeah.
reminds. When I think of the ring, that's what I think of.
And here's what I think, Jason, when you think of Lute Olson, besides winner and coach, basketball coach, and national champion 1997, you think about one of the classiest gentlemen you've ever seen, right? On a basketball court. He's distinguished. He was classy. He was always under control, seemingly, or mostly always under control. So there's just something that strikes me that, and this is my own personal opinion, it strikes me that it's less than dignified to sell that ring at auction. I don't know why. It just seems to me that the distinguished gentleman that was Lute Olson, that's just not the right fate for as you said, a ring that we used to see every time they were ready to tip the ball off at McHale.
Yeah, when I think of an object auction, I'm thinking of you know, Jeff Gordon's Corvette or something that he drove for a year that doesn't have that much
Yeah.
meaning. But
Or sometimes you see like Super Bowl rings go from like the center that's just fallen on hard times and things like
well,
that.
that's kind of similar though.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's what I'm told. You see a lot of this from athletes in previous decades before the money was that big, and now this is what's worth the money. And they
right.
weren't able to cash in because they weren't getting paid that much, and all of a sudden now they have something that's worth a lot of money. So, you don't know. You don't know the relationship with a family member. You don't know the financial situation that somebody's in. But I just came across that, this week and thought it was interesting and thought it was a good topic for the huddle.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll see. Maybe it'll shake out a little bit more, and we'll find out the exact reason why. And as you said, I hope somebody swoops in there and grabs it, pays the money that they need to pay, and it stays in the U of A family.
All right, so we got a few minutes left here on the huddle. Jason Barr, Pat Paris, talking sports here. Basically, also Pat, so I mentioned at the top of the program here. This is kind of like a transition week, right? You got baseball opening day, you've got the Final Four, you got the Masters, and so a lot going on. Also, Pat, you're going to be involved with the Tucson Sugar Skulls broadcast this year. I know they're starting up. I believe is it this week on the road with three road games.
Yeah, they
What,
start 3 road games
what
first.
can you tell people about the Sugar Skulls and the new coach and probably a new quarterback this year?
Yeah, and I've talked to Curtis Chin, who was the offensive coordinator a couple of seasons for the Sugar Skulls, and he obviously will continue to lead the offense. That's been terrific. I mean, that's not been their problem. It's been defense. I talked to Kevin Guy this morning, and he said the one thing that he and Curtis Chin have been working on for the Sugar Skulls has been defense, and that's been a priority. And so they seem to be satisfied with bringing in new players to the game. We'll have to see if that translates on the field.
All right, Wally Wildcat says, "Did you guys happen to catch the World Baseball Classic?" I
Mhm.
didn't. Pat, did you?
I watched some of the games. Yeah, the U.S. did great until the last game, and they lost to Japan. It was good baseball. Unfortunately, there were some injuries that came out of it, and that's always the fear when you have guys have to ramp up. The thing about spring training, Jason, it's a month long, and you start out really low, right? And then you slowly each week get better until the time about now when you're wrapping up spring training, you're ready for real game action. Well, the baseball classic, after about a week of spring training, they're playing real games, not just inter squad games, not just split
But
squad.
Pat, that's only for the pitchers. Those guys are in shape all year long. There's no, I
But
wouldn't call that.
Jason, it's the pitchers are the ones that some of them got hurt. Some of them ended up, tweaking stuff, elbow soreness, that kind of stuff. That's the issue that you have.
But if they weren't being extended, so if a pitcher starts
No,
out spring
but
training and the first spring training
but
game, the pitcher
as
throws
well as
three
I
in.
do, when you're playing for your country, you're throwing a little more max effort than you would in a spring training. You don't care about a spring training.
That's fair.
That's all I'm saying is
That's a fair
it's
point.
and you go into it knowing that. Otherwise, I thought the baseball was really
Yeah.
good, and I
Uh,
thought the offensive stars were the offensive stars, and it was fun to see. I'm not crazy about it. I'm just, I'm kind of lukewarm on the idea of it. But it brought interest to baseball on the international stage, and we have to remember that baseball is not just America's pastime. It's huge in Latin American countries. It's huge in Japan and Korea. It's ridiculously popular. So it's a great way to even get more exposure for a great game.
Yeah, people are wanting to know if spring training is going to be shortened the way the NFL preseason, which has become a little bit not so great of a product, has been shortened after. But the issue with shortening spring training is that the pitchers have to get ready and they have to be
That's right.
extended, and so they go whatever it is, 50 pitches to 70 pitches to they need those 3 or 4 starts to get extended. But those players don't need a month. It's completely unnecessary. They're in shape all year round. It used to be, for guys putting on 10 or 12 pounds in the off season, to get ready for the year. No, everybody stays in shape all year long.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
you really only need a couple weeks. It's the pitchers who need longer. Maybe there's a way to figure that out, but spring training definitely, definitely is way too long. Season though starting early. I think March 28th, or is it 29? Which day is opening day? It's this week. It's late
It's this
March.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as opposed to early April. So Diamondbacks open up against the Dodgers, I believe, and a player from Vail on the Vale, Arizona on the Dodgers roster. So that'll be interesting. And as we transition into spring, get some warmer weather here in Arizona and Tucson.
That's right. Can't wait.
All right,
Today's a nice day, though, by the way.
that's right.
Nicest
That's
day
right.
we've had all year.
All right, everybody, enjoy the Final Four and bet what you can afford to lose. Don't go crazy, and especially with some of the way these games have been covered on the backdoor covered and everything else. So make it a little more fun for yourself, but don't go nuts. All right, this has been the Huddle for Pat Paris. I'm Jason Barr. Thanks everybody for watching this week live and the next several days on delay. We appreciate it. We'll see you right back here next week at this time.